Okay, so in this video, we're going to be looking at string handling and basically how we deal with strings and how we use strings in Python. So Cambridge says that you need to understand and use the concept of string handling. So this basically means we just need to know everything about strings. We need to know what they are, how we create them, how we can manipulate them to suit our needs. Now, Cambridge says specifically you need to know about length, how to create a substring, how to make a string into uppercase, and how to make a string into lowercase. We're going to do a little bit more in this video just to make sure we touch all bases, and they're good skills to know. But in general, this is what Cambridge are going to be looking for here. So let's start off with, how do we create a string? So basically, to start off in Python, we give the we create a variable and we give that variable a name. And if we're creating a string, well, we make it equal to something in speech mark. So this one is called name, and I'm just going to put a name in it. Simon. Right, now when we do this, when we set up a string and we call it, what a programming language does is it sets it up and then it gives each character in that string a position within the string. All right, so in this case, because we're using Python, the first position will be 0. Some programming languages have the first position as 1, and if you do that in the exam, that will be fine, because Cambridge says you can have the starting position as 0 or 1. In this video, we're going to be referencing it as 0 because Python does it as 0. All right, and we've been doing Python in class. And then we have position 1, position 2, position 3, and position 4. So if I was to call upon position 1, it will, position 1 here, not 0, it would print out the I. Okay, or if I was to write a command to print out between 0 and 2, it would print out the first 3 in the string because 0 is the start position. If I was to make a mistake in Python and think the first position was 1 and I said print out 1 to 3, it would start at I and finish at O. Okay, now another thing that strings do is, let's say if I want to new string and I make it equal to, let's just say hello world. Now a programming language will set this up. So and what it will do is it will give every character its position like before, but it will also include the space. So spaces are counted as characters in a computer, and then it will give the space. So it will start at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the space will be position 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so that's just something to bear in mind when we're working, that a space is also a character, so it will have a position in the string as well. All right, so let's get started with our coding. So I'm just going to put this to one side, but I'll leave it there so we can see it for referencing. And then I will open my Python document up. And I've already written comments in here just to show what each bit is doing. Okay, and then at the end, I can leave it open and you can look at it and just see the code at the end if you wanted to use that to revise from later. Okay, so let's get started. First thing we want to do is set up our string. So if I just give this a name, we'll call this test because it's just a test string, and we're going to make it equal to, and let's just say something quite simple but long enough to be able to show everything we need. This is a simple string. Okay, so we set up the string. Its name is test, that's the variable name, and it's equal to this information here. So if we print this, print test, and we should get, when we run it, this is a simple string. Okay, so that's working fine. Let's go on to the next bit. So the next bit I want to do is just show you how you can see the length of the string. So again, I'm going to say print, but I'm not going to actually print the name. I'm not going to print the string here. I want to print the length, but I do need to use the name of the string here, which is test. So I'm going to say length, or len for length, and then in here, test. And then I'm going to close two brackets. So it's going to print test, but it's not going to print test as in we do it up here. It's just going to print test as in the length of the test. So if I press F5 to run, you'll see it's printed the first line, and then it's given me the length of it, which is 25 characters long, including spaces. Let's go on to the next bit. So the next one, we are just going to look at how you replace an item in a string. So to do this, you just say the name of the string, because we're going to keep the string name the same, but we're going to kind of overwrite it. So we're going to say test is equal to test, and then we're going to say use the keyword replace, so test dot replace, and then in brackets we're going to say what we want to replace and what we want to replace it with. So I'm going to replace the word simple, and I'm going to put a comma and say I want to replace it with short. Okay, so in this one, we're saying that new variable test is equal to the test dot replace simple with short. So it should be exactly the same when I print test, but instead of saying simple string, it should just say short string. So let's have a look. Print test. Just before I run this as well, this doesn't have to be test. I could say, if I wanted to keep the original string, I could just say this is new test, or this is test2, or any different variable name. But because I just want to work with the same variable and the same string, I've just made it equal to the same thing. Okay, so let's run that and see what we've got. So you can see here, the original one said simple, it's 23 long, and the new one says short. So I've replaced simple out with short. Let's go to the next one. So printing a substring. So to print a substring, you're just going to print out your string, but in square brackets, you're going to say which section of the string you want to replace with. Okay, so I'm just going to say print test, and then in square brackets, I want to start at 0, but you don't have to start at 0. Remember, you can start anywhere you want. Okay, so I'm going to start at 0. I think I'll finish at 6. And close my square brackets and close my curly brackets. So I'm printing the string test, and I'm starting at position 0, and I'm ending at position 6. I could start here at position 5 if I wanted and end later on, but I'm just going to start at 0 for this time. I'm going to run it, and you can see it just prints out this space I before, and then it stops because that's the first 6 positions in the string. Now we can also use string manipulation to count how many times something happens in a string. So in this case, we're going to have a look for the letter R, and we're going to see how many times the letter R happens inside of this string. So to do this, again, we just say print, and again, we want the name of our string, and then we're going to use the command dot count, and then in brackets, we're going to say what we're looking for. So we said we're looking for R, so we're just going to look for R, and then don't forget to close the 2 brackets if you've opened 2 brackets. Okay, let's run this and see how many times R happens in our string. So you can see there is 2 R's in this string. So if we look at it, there is, let's see if we go along, there's the first R and there's the second R. All right, so 1 and 2. So let's have a look. at this next one. So find what position an item is in a string. All right, so I'm going to look for the letter R, and it's going and find out what position that letter R is in. All right, so again, print. A lot of these commands will be print because we're just printing out and manipulating a string to see what we want. And we're looking at string test, and we're going to use dot find, and then we're going to put in brackets what we're looking for. So we said we're looking for the letter R, so let's look for the letter R, and then, oh, I haven't closed my speech marks. Close speech marks, remember, close two brackets, and then run it, and see what it comes up with. So you can see here, it says position 13. Now you'll notice it just stops there. It doesn't tell me the second one, because once it's found R, it will just stop and tell you where that R is. It doesn't know that there's two R's in there, because the second it finds it, it will stop what it's doing. All right, and there is R in there, position on 13. So this next one, see what is in a particular position of a string. So this is kind of, not really the opposite, but it's kind of the opposite of what this is. This one, the command above, was asking what position R is in, but this one is we're going to ask what is in this position. Okay, so this one, again, we're going to use print, and we're going to use the keyword, the word for the variable, test, and then we're just going to put in square brackets what position in the string I want to look at. I've put position 18, and then if I run that, hopefully it will show me, that R is in position 13 from before, but in position 18 there is also an R. All right, that is this position here. All right, the second R in the string. Let's have a look at this one. Now we can split a string by using the key command split, but we're going to be printing it again because we want to see it. So now at this point, I'm printing all of these, but if you wanted to, you could make them equal to a different variable. So instead of saying print split, I could say something like string split is equal to, and then put this command as well. So I could, instead of printing, I could say the variable name. An example of that would be string split, and then put this command, test, the name of the variable, dot split. Right, it doesn't always have to be a print. I'm just printing them here so we can see what's happening, because if I just created variables, we wouldn't see them, so I'd have to print them, and then my code will be twice as long. So I'm just going to print them out, but you can save them as variables. All right, what I mean by that, just if I wasn't that clear, I could say something like split string is equal to test dot split, like that. Okay, so I could do that and then print split string, and I could do that for all of these commands I'm doing, but I'm just printing them out just to show you how it works rather than setting them as variables. So let's give this a run and see what we get. All right, so you can see what we've done here is it's just basically split the string up into all its different parts. Okay, so every time there's a space, it's just split them up. All right, which is good if I ever want to reference a whole part of a sentence, like a whole word from a sentence. Right. Now you can also split at a certain point. So again, I'm going to use print and the variable test, which is our string, and then dot split, and then I'm going to say I want to split it at a certain letter. I'm going to pick A. All right, I'm going to pick A. I don't know why that's happening. It's because I'm used to using an English keyboard, and my new keyboard's international, and I was pressing the @ sign instead of the speech mark. That's why. And there's very weird. What's going on here? Let's just try. I'm going to change it from here. Let's just test it out, and I'll fix my keyboard after I finish recording. Let's just split it at P. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on there, but we'll just split this at P. I'll fix that later. Okay, let's F5 and run it, and you can see at the position P, I don't know why I've put P, because there isn't a P in there. That was silly of me. Let's try that again, because I don't have a P in the new string because I changed simple to short. So let's just change it to let's split the string at position O instead of P, and then we'll run that. Okay, so you can see here it's splitting the string at the position O. It's taken the O off, and then it's started again after the position O. Okay, now the next one, we're going to rejoin or replace items in a string. Okay, so again, I'm going to be printing, and I'm going to say sum in speech marks, and then join, and then the string I'm working with, test dot split, and then I'm just going to put this at position O again, and then close my brackets. Let's do the same as before, so let's do it at position that seems to be working fine now. Do position A again, and then we're going to close 3 brackets this time because we've opened 3. 1, 2, 3. So we close 1, 2, 3. So basically, well, let's run it and see what it does. Then we'll discuss it after. So you can see here, this is sum short string. Now I know the English isn't particularly great in this sentence, but you can see what's happening here. If I just move it to one side, we've used the word sum, which is here, and we're using our string, and we're going to join the string at position A. So when we got to position A, it inserted the word sum into here and took away the A. So instead of saying this is a short string, I replaced it to say this is some short string. Okay. Now this is one of the points that Cambridge said that you need to know for the exam. All right, so that's this one here, and it's to make a string upper. Now we've did this one a lot in class, but we'll have a look at it again. So we're going to say print again, and we're just going to name the string, and we're just going to put dot upper. Okay, and then open close brackets. Now, 2 seconds, I've just realized I haven't put the first bracket for that. I'm going to print this so you can see it. Sorry, run this so you can see it, and then we'll do the lower one after. But it's the same concept. So you can see here, it's just changed all of my string into uppercase. And to do it as lower, we do exactly the same. So print the name of the string, and then dot lower. Close them, and I'll just run that so you can see it. And you can see that the first string has printed dot upper, and the second string has printed in lower. Next bit. We need to make the first letter in each word a capital. Okay, so we just basically use a keyword for title for this one, and it just basically makes the first letter a capital. Okay, So if we say print and then test, and then instead of saying dot upper or lower, if we just say title and then open close brackets, and then if we run this, you'll see just like with the upper and lower, it says first letter in each word a capital, just like you would do when you were writing a title on a page. Next one. So if we need to swap cases, we can use a keyword of swap case. Now this might be useful if you're not actually sure what somebody is going to type in as into a variable, especially if you had a user input and you needed it to be the opposite. So we can say again, print and then test, and then we're just going to put dot swap case. Open close brackets, and whatever it's written in, it will swap it to the opposite. Okay, so if I run this, and you'll see it's swapped it to the opposite. So if you look at my original string, which is up here, it's had T with this with a capital T, and everything else was small. If you look here, it's put T with a small letter or lowercase t, and made everything else upper. Okay, so that's what that command does. Now, we can also do a test to see if something is upper or lowercase, and we just use the word is upper rather than just upper and just lower like we did here. So again, print, and then we can use the variable test, and then we use dot is upper, and then this will return a true or false value. So I'm just going to do both of these for this one. Print test dot is lower, and I think I'll do the one for title as well because it's exactly the same. Print test dot is title. Yeah. Although the next one's very similar, I'm going to leave it there because it's a little bit different and we haven't looked at it yet, and we'll just run this one for now. And so you can see when it runs, it's saying false, false, false. Now, why is it saying false, false, false? Well, it's basically because none of these apply to the actual string itself. Okay, so our string is this one here. Now, it's not upper because there is lowercase there. It's not lower because there's uppercase there. And it's also not a title because the start of every word is not a uppercase. Okay, so it's given me false, false, false for each one. All right, so now this is very similar to the other tests that we just did by using the word is, but I just wanted to look at it separately just because I wanted to, the keyword is a little bit different. Okay, so the print and the test is the same, but when we are using the dot, we're going to say is, and we're going to say al num. All right, so that is alpha numeric, al for alpha, and num for numeric. Okay, so if we run this, and it should just say false again because it's not an alphanumeric. Yeah, there you go. It's not an alphanumeric value because it just says this is a simple string. There's no numeric characters in there, so we've gotten false. Now let's test to see if it's alpha. Okay, so for this one, I'm just going to change this. So I'm just going to say test is equal to hello world. Okay, and then I'm just going to say print test dot is alpha, and we'll see what it says. Let me return there. Yeah, so print test dot is alpha, and then close brackets. Oh, I forgot my two brackets. What is alpha? And then we'll run this and see what happens. Right, so you can see at the end it's given us a false. I'm not sure why it's given us a false. I'm sure that should be true. Let's just have a look here. Try and run that again. Yeah, true. Yeah, so the reason why it was false before is because there was a space in it. So the space is not an alpha or numeric. Well, we're only looking for alpha here, but it's not an alpha, so it was going to give me a false because the space, and you can see here if we run it again, is not alpha, so it's going to give me false. Okay, so when you're running and testing for something that is alpha, you can't have any spaces in it. Okay, so next we're going to test the string to see if it's made up of numbers. Okay, so, and it's not as simple as it might seem. Well, it is as simple, but if I say print, and you might think I want to say test.is numeric, but I'm not going to look for that. I'm going to look for to see if yeah, I'm not sure if I put a K there or not. I'm going to test for digit. Okay, so I'm testing to see if the string is made up of digits. Okay, so I'm going to run this test first, and then I'm going to run it again and make it full of digits so you can see. All right, so right on, string object has no attribute digit. Right, so you can see I've gotten an error because I'm looking for something that it can't be, because my test string is a string, and I'm asking it to look for something that is numeric. So Python's having a problem with that. So I'm just going to make a test2, and I'm going to make it equal to just a number. All right, and then we'll run that again. Oh, and it's going to give me an error again because I didn't change the test to test2. Try that again. Okay, so what's it saying here? Int object has no attribute digit. Okay, let's have a look here then. So let's change this to number 1. See if this runs. Nope, not running. I wonder if Python has changed the command for this. Well, let's change this. Let's see if it's numeric then. Dot numeric. We run that one. There's no attribute numeric. Test2. Yeah. I tell you what I've done really stupidly. Let's change this again. This can stay the same. I'm testing to see if it is numeric. I'm not trying to make it numeric. So what I want is print. I was getting an error because I was trying to print a number and to make it numeric when it was already numeric. Sorry, I need to say print test2 dot is digit. Okay, now when I run it, object no attribute is digit. 944 is numeric. no attribute is numeric. I know what I've done. I know. All right. There. Sorry, we're trying these. Okay. So let me explain this, and I didn't realize what I did there, but it's probably actually good that I did do that. So you can see, right, so these things that we're doing, the test2 dot is digit, or the test dot is title, or even up here, the dot splits, these are all things for string handling, okay, which is what we were looking at over here. Now, when I created this number originally, and I did it without any speech marks around it, I created an integer. Okay, so when I've done this, I made that an int. And when you try to do string handling by putting the name of the variable dot whatever you want to do, Python is trying to use it as a string, and I made an integer. Okay, so that made Python not work. Python was saying, what are you trying to do? You're trying to work with strings, but you've given me an integer to work with. That does not work. Okay, so when we're doing this, remember, even when you're using integers, make sure that, or even when you're using numbers, I should say, sorry, not integers, make sure that you put them in speech marks, because otherwise Python will not recognize what you're trying to do. So now when I run this, so if I run them both here, let's try and do print test dot is alpha. If we run both of this, I should get a false, and then I'll get a true. That's syntax what I did here. Test2 is equal to, okay. Right, so you can see here, I've got for some reason it keeps taking that. When I've asked is alpha, it said true, and I wasn't after alpha, I was after is digit, sorry. But it keeps taking away my speech mark there. I don't know why it's doing that. I'll have a look at it after this video. Run that again, sorry. Okay, so we've got false here, all right, because when we checked for digit for test 1, it just said hello, so it's given false. And then when I checked for test 2, it had numbers in, so it's given me true. Okay, add that back in. It's taking it off again. Very strange. And then finally, now we're just going to finish off by looking at how we would print a string with a symbol between each letter. Okay, so I'm going to create a new test for this, and I'm going to pick it when I've done this. Sure what's going on. I'm just going to delete this line of code because it seems to be giving my program problems. That should be fine. So I'm going to create a string. Let's say I'm going to add a symbol between each letter. So that's what I'll say. I'm going to add a symbol between each letter. And then my string. And now I'm going to make this string, or print out this string again. Actually, and there's something, I've clearly knocked something on my keyboard to make it do this, but I don't know what. I'll have a look after I made it. Right. So I'm going to just make this string between every single letter, print out a symbol of my choice. All right, so to do this, I'm going to have to use a loop, and I'm going to use a for loop because I'm going to loop all the way through this string. So I'm going to say for I in test and then I'm going to do the following. Print at position I, but at the end of position I want you to print and whatever symbol you want to see. So I'm just going to use the asterisk for this one. So it's going to loop all the way through this string, all the way through, and when it gets, for every time it goes to the next position, it's going to put an asterisk after that position because I've put end. All right, so let's run this and have a look. Oh, something I never closed. I did close that. All right, I think that's right. Okay, so test 2 is not defined. Did you mean test? What's that for? That's because I have deleted that line of code before, so let's just say yes, because I deleted test 2 before, so it was giving me trouble. Okay, so you can see it just looped through and it's put an asterisk between every character. Okay, so that is strings. All right, now my apologies for my computer acting up at the end there. I'm not really sure what happened. I will make sure it's fixed for the next video. So what I'm going to try and do is I'll make this smaller so you can see it all, and then if you need to, you can take a screenshot of it. Okay, so I'll just maybe make it to size 14, might be small enough. Maybe size 12. Still, let's see if I can make this bigger. If I make it to the full screen, it might. Yeah, that's got everything on there. Okay, so if you need to, you can take a screenshot of this, okay, and have a look at it. But remember that in the exam, they won't specifically ask you for all of these. They will ask you, however, for the key topics that we mentioned at the start, which are the length of a string. So that would be the ones that we did at the start here. It might ask you about the substrings. So we're talking about these ones here, or even these ones here, and the upper and the lower, which are towards the bottom here. Okay. So I'll just make this bigger. If you need to screenshot it, you can. And I will see you in the next video.